Okay, so it's just going to be me talking, yeah? You're not going to introduce me or anything? Cool. Me. Okay, so I'm told that I'm live and can start at 7. I'm assuming Sarah meant 5 rather than 7. So hi, everyone, and welcome to this 5 p.m. It is 5 p.m. It's dark outside, but it's still only 5 p.m. Live stream talking about presenting on podcasts. I am your host this evening. My name is Scott. Hello. I'm the creator of the Probably True podcast, the multi-award winning Probably True podcast, and also a couple of other things, including the Queer Podcasters Network and other things that have slipped my mind right now, which is fine and entirely normal, I'm sure. So today we are looking at hosting and presenting and some of the skills that are good to have when you're doing that kind of thing. Welcome, by the way, to my boudoir where we're doing this evening. I've kind of done all the colors quite nice and sexy just for you, so I hope you like it. So let's get started. First off, and this is something that I've already noticed that I'm doing, is umming and erring. If you can help it, stop, because it's difficult and it's a habit that you have to kind of get into and really start thinking about the words that you're saying as they're coming out of your mouth. And it can be quite exhausting to do this for a long time. I see DJs on like live radio who can do this, and they're amazing at it. They can talk for ages without actually saying anything, but without going or well or you know. But being able to not go is important, and it just saves you time later editing it out of the recording, because you don't want to leave it in, because that's not particularly good for your audience and all that kind of thing. Other basics that you should know. I'm going to be doing it all the time now. I'm going to be really conscious of it, and so are you. So that was a mistake to put that one first. Never mind. Your distance from the microphone makes a lot of difference. Like right when I'm recording, I'm probably about here. Oh, hang on. If I just go like this, so you can see where my microphone is. It's here. So usually I'm about here. I'm about that distance, like finger to little tip of the little finger to the tip of the thumb away from the microphone. That's because if you get too close, it all starts to sound a bit like this. And if you're too far away, you get a lot of room noise, a lot of echo, a lot of that kind of thing. So the idea with all of this is practice. All you have to do is record yourself at a few different distances. And with your headphones on, you should notice quite quickly how much of a difference it makes. You might not notice it when you're recording, but record from a few different distances, get comfortable, and then listen back to them, and you'll be able to hear which is better and why. As you can see as well, I have some foam things. You can get these on Amazon or anywhere else. They're very good for deadening sound. You don't need them. If you want to do something similar at home without spending money on this kind of stuff, or you don't have somewhere to put it up, this currently is on top of my dresser in my bedroom, because I share a house with housemates because I live in central London. But you can do this with any kind of soft fabrics. So tablecloths, towels. In fact, when I started Probably True, the first couple of seasons were all recorded me sticking my head under my duvet with my microphone in my hand. All of that kind of thing is entirely legit. It works. Helen Zaltzman, the doyenne of podcasting, the pinnacle of all that we aspire to be, bless her, long may she reign, talks about how she's recorded episodes with her head stuck in a tumble dryer before, because you can pad it out nicely and pop your microphone in. And if that's good enough for her, then it's good enough for all of us as well. Oh, wow, we've got some questions in the chat already. I have some other things that we'll come back to because I'm not done. But question number 1, what's your number 1 piece of advice for scripting? I would say with scripting, make sure that you're sounding as natural as possible. Part of my job when I'm not in front of a microphone is copywriting. So I do a lot of tone of voice work with the stuff that I write already. Getting your scripts to sound natural and like you're actually talking to someone can be quite difficult if you're not used to it. The best thing to do is think about, how would you say this to someone you were talking to over a cup of tea? What would be the words that you'd actually use? If you're not sure, actually sit down with someone over a cup of tea and just be like, I just need to check something. I'm going to hit record and I'm going to explain this to you. Really start to, you can do that, and you can really just start to listen to the way people talk in conversations. This is important because the more engaging and the more natural and the more kind of unforced your this is both your script and your delivery, but we'll come back to delivery in a minute, sound, the more natural it sounds, and the more you're drawing in your audience, the more they're going to keep listening, and it doesn't sound really kind of awkward and stilted, like you're all weird robots that are on some kind of human safari or something. So yes, that would be the first piece of advice for scripting. Make it sound natural. Read it out loud and see if it sounds like something you would say or your characters would say if you're scripting more than one. If not, change it. Be very aware of the tone of what you're saying and how you're saying it, because again, tone of voice, these things are important. There's a real difference between welcome, Mr. Jones, how may we help you today? And hey, Steve, how you doing? Those kind of things are all part of the tone of voice and the ambience, whether conscious or otherwise, that you're creating with your podcast that helps to draw your audience in if it's done right. And if it's done wrong, just kind of makes them all feel a little bit awkward and weird, and they'll probably stop listening. Talking of voice, and this actually flows quite nicely into the next question I've been asked. So thank you, whoever asked, how do you warm your voice up? This is part of that. I would say my key piece of advice for this is don't record first thing in the morning. Have some conversations with normal people to start with, so that you're actually, your brain's in talkie mode for a start. And also, what I usually do actually is a couple of minutes of just talking to myself, or the first, if it's a script that you're reading, if you're just doing a one-person reading and you've got the script in front of you, go through it once without recording and then hit record. Easy as that. But some people do like to do exercises, and they do all the kind of how now brown cow and stuff like that, and that's cool too if you want to do that. That to me, I feel a bit silly, but then I chose this hair, so feeling silly is pretty much standard. But yes, so warming up is important. Make sure you're talking, where possible, talk to real people, because it helps you get into the mode of talking naturally and normally, and you're not just jabbering like I am right now. Oop, and don't hit your microphone stand. And this, I think, will really help you to feel more confident in what you're saying, because you're talking naturally. You're feeling comfortable. You're not all kind of stiff, and you haven't, you kind of, this is the thing where, I don't know if you've heard of poetry voice. Like when people are reading poetry, they always have a very particular tone to their voice, and it sounds all awkward and weird. Whereas if you get it's the same with Shakespeare. When you read Shakespeare, you kind of read it how it's written. Whereas when you see proper kind of actors do it, it sounds a lot more natural, because they're not reading it how it's written. They're reading it how it should sound to feel natural. It's a similar kind of thing. You have to kind of relax into what you're doing, but don't go too far, because if you relax too much, then you're not really talking, you're just kind of mumbling. And even if you're quite close to the mic, like, it doesn't sound very good, because talking at a monotone like this isn't gonna really enthrall your audience. They're going to get bored, they're going to stop listening, and they're going to go away. Whereas all you need to do is be a little bit more engaging. Just have a natural kind of rhythm, cadence to your voice, and really kind of That's it, really. Just relax into it. Then, of course, you have to be. It's a balancing act between too little kind of mumbly, monotony, and going too far the other way and being kind of smashy and nicey, kind of, hey, welcome to the podcast. We're all fun guys here. We're all having an amazing time. Hey, which is exhausting and will probably also put your audience off. So it's a balancing act. And again, the main tip that I can give you for all of this is practice. Practice, practice, practice. And then when you've got it right, practice some more, because there'll always be new things that you can learn. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, and we're talking about not mumbling too much, your podcast voice is a bit like your phone voice. It's your voice. It's still very much you. You're not putting on a particularly posh accent. You're still talking like you normally talk, but you are enunciating just a little bit more than you normally would. So you're making sure that you are sounding out every syllable that you're saying, but that you're not doing it in a way that sounds like you're just reading this off a script. Because if you're doing that, your audience will think you're a robot and they'll switch off. I've found actually since I started podcasting that there's even a few ads like that come up on YouTube, and not so much on podcasts because Acast are very good at this kind of thing. Big up to my Acast people. But on YouTube, especially at the moment, there's the advert for Gorillas, you know, the grocery delivery people, and those ads have actually been written for robots. Like there's a robot in the background going, "Your phone is hungry for new ads. Download the app now." And it just, you can hear it after a while. It really starts to grate on my ears, like someone's taking a cheese grater to them and just going for it. So natural speech is something you need to practice, but you'll get into it. Ooh, I'm talking quite a lot. This is quite fun. It would be nice to have someone to talk to, but Sarah doesn't like to come on camera, so it's just me today. Oh, and I'm just taking a really big deep breath in, and I've seen a question here that says, I hear myself breathing really loudly, gasping, excuse me, when I talk. How do I stop that? It's an interesting one. Again, practice. I mean, the answer to all these questions are going to be it's practice. But when it comes to breathing, part of it is your posture. Like if you can record standing up, it's much better because your chest is there. You can fill your lungs with air. A lot better than you can if you're kind of hunched over on a chair or something like that, or knelt with your head under a duvet like I used to be. As well as that, I would say make sure that you're breathing from your belly. Diaphragm is the word, not belly. Yeah. So instead of just little breaths up here, because then you'll have to keep breathing in the middle of a sentence so that you can get enough air to get to the end of the sentence. That's not great. So where you can, take a nice big breath and then work through to the end of your sentence. The trick here, of course, because this is a bugger to edit, is if you do take a big breath in, and then suddenly you start talking really quickly and you're quite loud and you're quite enunciated at the beginning, but then towards the end you start to run out of breath and it sounds really quite bad. So again, it's all about even pressure, making it from one end of the sentence, or at least to a pause in the sentence without running out of breath. Where you can, and this again is a habit that you pick up after a while, if you're the one, especially if you're the one editing your own show. Some of you I know are lucky or privileged or have the ability, to pay someone else to edit your podcast, and I cannot blame you. But if not, a good technique to get into is making sure that you finish the word before you breathe in. So that's the difference between talking like this and then carrying on, or talking like this and then carrying on. Because when you do that, if you haven't finished the word when you start the breath in, it's much harder to edit out cleanly just the inhalation, which obviously you can go back through and do once you've recorded, assuming you're not doing a live stream. And if you are doing a live stream, then I think people are a lot more forgiving of it when it's live because they can see you. But also, if I suppose if you're down, if you're, you can't really see, but I'm right. But if I'm down here and I'm like, every time I have a sentence, then that's not really going to sound very good. But try not to breathe in directly into your microphone, but also don't be kind of talking here and then. Like so many of these things, it's a little bit of a tightrope. You're balancing. You're over time, like it becomes second nature really, really quickly. You will get used to it. You will find ways to do this. It's not. If I can do it, it's not difficult. I am not a clever person, and I've been doing this for a little while now, and no one's made me stop. So if I can do it, you can do it. Easy peas. So Emma Stigter, I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. How do you find your USP? What makes you individual to other presenters? Oh, that's a bit like saying what makes you an individual as a person, because they're the same thing. It's all about who you are as a person, and your personality and the way you project yourself will come across. And you don't have to emulate somebody else. I see a lot of kind of, oh, so-and-so's the next whoever, and oh, he's the next Terry Wogan. Like, no, we had a Terry Wogan. He was great. We don't need another one. We need someone to be themselves in a different way. And by being yourself and allowing your personality to come across in the work that you're doing, that will happen because you're a great person. You're fun. People like listening to you. You wouldn't have a podcast otherwise. If you were boring or you droned along and had nothing really interesting to say, then I've got friends like that. And I love them to bits, but it's very difficult to spend a long time talking to them because my eyes just start to cross and I'm trying to listen, but I am out of it. I'm checking my phone. I'm looking around. I'm ordering 4 more drinks just to keep me awake. And then things get blurry and that's not a good idea. So let your personality come across in what you're doing, whether that's scripted or just your podcast, maybe you talking to another person. Make sure that you're giving each other room to get your personality across, to talk and to be yourselves, rather than both of you or one of you fighting with the other to try and get a little bit more airtime. A good presenter doesn't need to kind of talk over their guest or the other hosts. It all should flow nicely together. Sometimes you get a dick who wants to talk over you. Sometimes you'll get a guest who's not going to shut the fuck up. And that can be fine because you control the edit, basically. So you can cut that down. And you could look at this is a little bit of a tangent, but here we are. When you're presenting, it doesn't always need to be, here is a recording of a conversation I had with another person. That's great if you're doing an interview, but what you can also do is a more narrative style thing where you have a clip of them talking about their favorite horse, and then you can end that clip and as the presenter, as the narrator in this piece, say, well, as Steve was talking, he mentioned an incident when he was much younger where a horse kicked him in the face, and since then he's not been able to see out of his left eye, but he also really loves horses. And then you can move into a clip about Steve going, oh yeah, it really hurt and now my left eye doesn't work, or something like that. For example, that's a stupid example, but you don't, when you record with someone, you are telling a story. You're always telling stories. And it doesn't have to be exactly the way it was told to you when it was recorded. As long as you're not changing the material facts, as long as you're not misrepresenting anyone, to do it in a different way, to make sure that it is engaging and interesting, and those mean the same thing, sorry, engaging and worth your audience's time, you'll be all right. And that's a big part of it, is making sure that you're respecting your audience's time enough. There are millions of podcasts out there. If people are going to come and listen to yours, then if you want people to come and listen to yours, then you have to make sure that you're being interesting, that you're being engaging, that you're understandable, so you're not mumbling, and you want them to come back. You want them to go, oh, that was really good. So as long as you're putting in the amount of effort, you're respecting their time and their thing, then you'll be fine. So yes, your USP is you. You are amazing already. You are already unique. and you can commodify that. Yay, capitalism. Let's all sell everything that makes us unique. That came out wrong. Yeah, I hope that helps, because yeah, you don't have to put on a different personality just for just to try and get some podcasting work or to make it seem cooler. There's absolutely no reason to do that. And I'm getting thank you, Irina, for agreeing with me on Helen Zaltzman reigning over us all. I'm very, very happy for that to happen. One more thing, and another thing that's just kind of is right in front of me. So one thing that I definitely wanted to talk about is a key piece of kit is this. It's a pop filter. It's basically, you can make these at home if you don't want to pay for one. They are quite cheap. I think they're about £5. But if you'd rather not spend money or you don't have the budget or whatever, you can make one out of a wire coat hanger and an old pair of tights. I did that as well. It works fine. This is just because I thought it looked a little bit classier, and you know, I had some Patreon money knocking around. Much obliged, internet. So how this works is, and you pop it in front of your microphone. It should not be touching your microphone. Leave it, you want about an inch or so between this, the other side of this, and the front of your microphone. The reason to use this is that when you have P's and T's, like plosives, so anything that can pop or any of those really harsh kind of clicky noises, if you're talking directly into your microphone and you don't have a pop filter in front of you, they're going to be a lot more obvious, and they are uncomfortable on the ear, and they spike in your waveforms, and they look horrible. So where you can, use a pop filter. Another tip that you can use in conjunction with, or instead of, if you don't have a pop filter, or you don't wear tights, or you can't find a wire coat hanger. All of these things have happened to all of us before now. I very rarely wear tights when I'm recording. I am right now, but that's just for fun. What you can, another good tip, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this in the microphone. If you'll notice, as we've been talking, you can't really, hang on. As we've been talking, my microphone is here and my pop filter is here. I'm not talking directly into, it's not bang on. I'm at 45, maybe not quite 90 degrees from there, and I'm talking across my microphone. That's not just because my webcam's in the corner and my microphone's over here because I'm in a cramped little space. It's actually intentional, because if I'm talking directly into my microphone, even with a pop filter, I'm pointing those noises directly into the sound catchy part of my microphone, and that's a problem. Excuse me a moment while I pop this back. Whereas if there we go, that's probably a better way of doing it, isn't it? You can see it now. So yeah, I'm talking, my microphone is here and it's pointing out this way. I'm talking across it like this, so that any noises I make go there. They don't go directly into the microphone, they go across it. This works, I mean, these two tips together work very, very well. And it just helps improve the quality of the sound a little bit. And it makes it easier to edit afterwards. So, next question is, how do you keep your energy up throughout? Very good question. I would, sorry. I would say I would avoid against caffeine, because there's something in, especially coffee, maybe like a caffeine, like a Red Bull or something, maybe not so bad, but I wouldn't risk it because those things are horrible and rot your stomach. Unless they want to sponsor me, in which case, yeah, I'll take the money. Anyway, avoid caffeine as your kind of pick-me-up if you can help it, because it gacks up your vocal cords a bit. Like, you get a lot more kind of slurpy mouth noises when you've had a coffee. I'm not sure why. I imagine it's something to do with it being a bit of a diuretic or something. So for as much as you can on the day of recording, don't have a coffee. Or if you must have one, make sure there's a good few hours between the coffee and the recording, and then make sure you're drinking plenty of other fluids in the meantime, just because it'll really help stop you gacking up. And how to keep your energy levels up? I think pressure is quite a good way. Like, people are listening. Again, it's practice. And one of the things that's important is, if you're not feeling it as you're recording it, stop. Or if you record it and then you listen back and you're going to go to edit it and you're like, oh, I sound a bit flat, re-record it, because it's better in the long run. It's one of the joys of podcasting is that you don't need to be, it's very good, it's recommended, best practice, to be very regular with your episodes. Once a week, once a fortnight, once a month, whatever your cadence is, whatever your rhythm of release, that sounds wrong, is great. Do your best to stick with it. However, if you miss one, or if you need to put out an episode late, it's not the end of the world. You don't get punished by any algorithms or anything like that, like you do on any other social media, because there's no YouTube for podcasting, which is both good and bad. This is the good side of it. If you record an episode, you go to edit it and you think, oh, this isn't a very good recording, I'm not really doing it justice. But I said, like, my normal publishing time is first thing tomorrow morning, so it's this version or nothing. Just be late, be a day late. It's not a problem. I'm a day late with my podcast right now. I just realized. But never mind, because I would rather, it's better to put out your best work than it is to fudge it and be like, oh fuck, I've got a deadline to meet, so I'll just half-ass it, because your audience will tell. And once or twice, maybe they won't care, but if it's a regular thing where you just sound a bit shoddy, then some people are going to start getting tuning out from that kind of thing. So it is effort to be as up and as chatty as you want to be for the time that you're recording. Part of the job. It can be a struggle, but you put the effort in. Like, sometimes when I'm done recording, I just want to sit down for half an hour and have a cup of tea and just kind of gird my loins and recharge my little battery a bit, because I put so much into my podcast, and that's okay. That's better than kind of just, getting through it because it needs doing and you don't really have the energy, you can't really be asked, but you've got to do it today, and excuse me. So it's better to really put the effort in, leave it all on the field, or whatever it is they say in sports. I don't know. But give it 100%. Don't half-ass it, basically, which can be frustrating. It can be frustrating to listen to an episode and go, this isn't good enough, I'm going to have to redo it. But it is the better thing to do. It is the way to be. It is how you create better content. And after you've done it a few times, once you've had to re-record 2 or 3 episodes, and you're like, then you'll start to build these better habits, and it comes with practice, just like everything else. I'm sorry that there's no shortcuts. I'm sorry that it's not just like, yes, have 2 coffees before you start. You'll be vibrating and you'll be able to taste the Wi-Fi, but you will get through it and you'll sound amazing. Doesn't work like that. Sorry. Maybe it does for some people, but for the rest of us, you'll just be gibbering and talking rubbish, and that's not good. You want to be personable, you want to be chatty, you want to be charming. If it helps, and it does help sometimes, imagine you're talking to a single person. Choose a friend of yours, choose someone that you like and that you actually want to talk to, and imagine that you're saying all of these things to them as you're recording, assuming, of course, that you're not interviewing someone. If you have 2 people, then you have 2 people to bounce that energy off of. You can keep each other up, and it's a lot easier because you're not carrying it all on your own. If you are carrying it all on your own, imagine that you're talking to someone else. Really kind of visualize them and talk about these things to them. It really helps. It's weird, but it helps. And if there's 2 of you, make sure that the chemistry's there in the first place, obviously. And you should be able to kind of keep each other up and keep each other going. Also, if there's 2 of you and you're not doing a live show, feel free to say, can we take 10 minutes? Because I just want to have a wee. maybe have a cigarette and just kind of don't smoke. It's bad for you. You want to have a wee and just kind of chill out for a minute, and we'll come back to it just so I can feel I'm on top of my game. You don't have to bash it all out immediately. Obviously, try and remember how you're positioned so that when you come back, you don't suddenly go from talking like this to talking like this, or something similar. But don't feel that once you start, that's it. You have to get through it in one go. You can take a little break and then get back into it. It's the same with sex, really. It's good to take a break every now and then, have a cup of tea, then get back at it. Oh, I feel I'm also kind of rattling all of these things out. So please do flag in the chat if I'm talking too quickly, or if there's anything that I've touched on that I haven't really explained the way you'd like it. I am working off some notes, but I'm aware as well that I tend to go off on a tangent. So hopefully, steady on, terribly sorry. So hopefully I am making sense here in my little podcasty booth. And I put the sexy lighting on just for you guys as well. One more thing, when there's more than one of you, that I find. Oh, thank you, Lisa. One of the things that I find supremely irritating, to the point where if a host or the hosts, the presenters, whoever is in charge, if they do this, I will stop listening as a matter of principle. And that is if they have an inside joke, or they reference something they were talking about before they started recording, or in a break or something like that. Because the whole idea of a podcast is to draw your audience in. It should feel to your audience like they are part of the group, like they are sat with you, just being very quiet and letting you talk while they listen. And one thing that will immediately ruin that and bring me right out as it is if one of you says something, if one of you references a joke that I don't get because it was from before you recorded, it was from earlier in the day when you weren't recording. Nothing worse than someone kind of saying, oh, it's a good job it wasn't his left foot, hey, and someone else going, oh, that was from before we started recording. I've stopped listening to several podcasts because of that. Like, if you're not going to make the effort to make me feel like I'm a part of the group, I'm not going to listen to your podcast. Some people, and I'm sure a lot of people will forgive it, they won't care. For me, I want to be drawn in. I want to feel like you're talking directly to me. If you're not, I'm not going to listen. Even when it's kind of, especially for the bigger podcast, people like Malcolm Gladwell and the guy who does Cabinet of Curiosities, Aaron Mankey, and does law and that kind of thing. The reason that they are really good at this is because when they talk to you, it sounds like they're talking directly to you. And you can do that. It's much easier to do that when there's just one of you. If there's two of you, it can be a little bit more difficult, but the key is to make sure that whatever you're talking about is accessible and is explained naturally to the audience. It doesn't need to be, oh, before we started recording, we made a joke about his foot and that's what this is about. No, don't care. Don't like that. It should flow naturally. It should be part of the conversation. If I don't feel like I'm part of the conversation, even though I'm not saying anything, it's going to pull me out of enjoying your podcast and just make me go, these guys are dicks and I don't want to listen anymore. Excuse me. Right. Next question. How do you acquire jobs that complement your personality? Oh, blimey. And have you ever had to reject any that don't? I've never had to reject a job. I'm not very good at saying no. That's kind of the point of my podcast. I would say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are people out there who can't move for being offered recording work and things like that, and good for them. For me, I find that when I'm looking for work, it tends to be that I have to approach the project rather than the project approaches me. Which Mandy.com, I think it is really good for that. It's a voice talent databasey posty thing. So have a look on there. It costs a little bit to sign up. But the idea is that you make money by getting jobs. They're not all great, so make sure you've got a reel and that kind of thing. That's a good point. Acquiring jobs that complement the kind of work that you do and your kind of personality is partly to do with your reel. If you put together a show reel that accurately portrays who you are and how you sound and the kind of work that you enjoy and that you want to be doing, then that'll help you get more of that kind of work. If you put together a show reel and it's, let's say, corporate voiceovers, but really you want to be voice acting in a video game or something, that's not going to work, because they're going to read that and go, oh, they're a corporate voiceover person. No, we want voice actors for video games. So make sure that your reel reflects the stuff that you like doing and that it shows you in the best light. Obviously, you want to be landing good punches. Make sure you're only using the best of your material, but make sure it's in the genre and in the kind of, if you want to do advertise, if you want to do commercials, commercial voiceovers, make sure you've done some fucking commercial voiceovers. They don't need to be professionally made. It helps, but it's not essential. There are quite a few people who will help you for free, and your podcast, taking clips from your podcast and using those as a kind of, hey, this is how I sound. This is the, oh, Jesus. This is what happens when you start fiddling with equipment mid-recording. Yes, make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, that you're representing yourself in the way that you want to be seen, and that you're applying for the kind of work that you want, you're approaching the kind of work that you want to do. I've never rejected any work, but I don't get offered that much. So, okay, next question. Ooh, I have a quiet, laid back kind of voice. How do you bring energy into your voice and still sound like yourself? I mean, obviously I haven't heard your voice, mysterious question asker. But if your voice is nice and laid back, I say lean into it. Obviously, don't go too laid back unless you're planning on helping people fall asleep, which is probably quite a lucrative career. There's all these celebrities that just want to talk to you gently and tell you a very relaxing story while you doze off. And if there's good work in that, it's good fun. Again, I think the best way to approach making your voice sound excited and interested in what you're talking about is to imagine that you're talking to someone, and feel excited. Again, this is much easier if you are talking to someone. So if there's 2 or 3 of you, brilliant. Be excited. Don't just be like, yeah, well, blah, blah, you're here, I'm here. Let's just have a normal kind of chat. Put a bit of effort in. But at the same time, be yourself. If you're chilled and laid back, be chilled and laid back. But just put a little bit more, just zhuzh it up a bit so that you, however you sound excited, however you sound when you're excited, when you're talking to someone, not like, I'm going on a roller coaster, but just kind of like, oh, I'm in a really good mood. I'm really excited to talk to you about this thing. It really comes across in podcasts because obviously they can't see your face, because you can be all kind of visually and no one's going to see it. So that's a lot of wasted energy. But if you can find the joy and the excitement in what you're talking about so that it comes across in your voice, then it will really, really, it'll really, really help. But yeah, if you've got a laid back type of voice, be a laid back kind of person, unless that doesn't work with your podcast, in which case try a different podcast. No, that's not useful at all. But yeah, imagine you're talking to someone you really like. Imagine you're flirting with someone at a bar, or you're talking to your best friend and you want to you like, oh my God, I've got something really exciting to tell you. And then as you're just imagine, if you can, actually do that. Tell your friends something, oh my God, that you're really interested to tell them. And while you're telling them, listen and feel how your chest feels, feel how your mouth feels. Where's your tongue? Are you speaking loud and fast? Are you talking really quite slowly but really quite emphatically? However you're doing it, remember that, and then bring that to your recording. And again, a good way of doing this kind of thing is to record some natural conversations, because if you're chatting away naturally, you can actually enjoy the conversation and you can listen back to it later. I'm mildly socially awkward and also anxious even, and awkward. And also I'm very good at overthinking. So I am often very, very aware of how I'm sounding and how I'm holding myself all the time, which makes it a little bit easier for me. Some of you, I'm sure, with your perfect lives are chill and relax and really enjoy talking to people. And hey, maybe this kind of thing comes easier to you. I don't know. But for me, I know how I know how I react physically when I'm excited. I know how my voice goes when I get excited. And I can bring some of that into how I'm recording. And that goes back to the thing earlier about energy and that kind of thing. You have to kind of find this voice, or whatever voice is the one you want to use, in what you're doing, whether you feel that way or not. It's a bit like acting. It's a lot like acting. It's acting in a way, because you might be putting on a face that you don't really feel. You know, some days you're just not in the mood, but for 20 minutes, an hour, you just have to kind of dial it up a bit and just get it done. God, is that depressing? That wasn't meant to sound depressing. I'm sorry if that's. Oh well. So I hope that was helpful. Okay, a question here from Donal. Hello, Donal. A radio journalist once interviewed me for a podcast. I'd invested quite a lot of time prepping myself as the guest. In the remote interview, the sound was poor and he was drinking a beer. The show never aired. How could I have spotted similar presenter red flags in his previous programming and avoided my wasted time? What are the classic "this presenter has no idea" tells? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Whoever that was, they're a dick, and I hope they don't have any work doing this kind of thing, because people like that shouldn't. Hang on a second. I'm just going to refocus on me. There we go. Just literally pulling focus there. So bad presenter tells. Have a listen to some of their other work. Do they talk over their guests? Do they interrupt them? Do they ask them a question and then answer it themselves? I've worked with some people who do that. And sometimes it's just that they're very excited about the subject matter. It might be that they have a story to tell, or they might just not be used to having guests and that kind of thing. And there is a skill to it. There is a skill to interviewing well. And one of the things, the main takeaway when you are interviewing someone is to get out of the way, let them do all of the talking. It's not about you. This is important, I think, as podcasting. If you have guests or when you're doing your thing, it's not about you. Don't confuse people listening to your podcast to people listening to you. And sometimes it can be like, oh my God, they really love me. They really love your work, which is a little bit different. But so if you're working with a presenter who is very kind of who just wants you there so that they can talk at you about themselves, that would be a big tell. Anyone who drinks or eats on microphone is not good at what they do, and shouldn't be allowed to do it. There have been a few podcasts that I've listened to where you have people eating and drinking into the microphone. And personally, I think it's called misophonia or there's a word for it that just means people who don't like the thank you, Sarah. Misophonia. There's a word for, it's the word for when people who are kind of revolted by the kind of mouth noises. I can't stand it. If you eat or drink into your podcast while I am listening to it, I will switch it off immediately. And it's the same. I also really don't like ASMR. Oh, fuck it, it's not. I'm blurry now. Okay, anti-aging. It's the same with ASMR. Some people really enjoy that, others don't. So don't be eating and drinking into a microphone. If your host is interrupting the guests, that would be a red flag. Have a look at some of the work that they've done. Does it seem like this? And this is possibly a little bit snobby. Does it feel like a high quality thing? Does it feel like they're putting the effort in? Does it seem like they're just rattling something out because they've heard that it's a good way to raise their profile? People have different reasons for doing podcasts, and they're all valid. But sometimes you can tell that people don't really care. They're just churning shit out because they've got a content calendar to fill, or they think it's the right thing to do to get their message across, rather than, well, they get their brand across, rather than because they want to tell a story, or they want to get a message out there, or they are passionate about what they're talking about. Be passionate. Like the fact that you invest a lot of time in prepping yourself as a guest and all of that, brilliant. You did the right thing. Sometimes you don't notice, and you'll probably be in that situation again, because you don't often get people going, hello, I'm Richard Everly. I'm a very bad podcaster. Do you want to be on my show? I'll talk over you. I'll drink and eat while you're on microphone. But fuck it, it'll be fun. People don't come at you like that. That's not how it's done. So I think if you find yourself in that situation again, it's one of those things where I'm going to give you this advice. I've never done this, but you can. But feel free to say, you know what? I don't think this is going well. Let's stop this for now. I'm not comfortable, or I don't feel like this is something. I've changed my mind. I don't want to be involved, or something like that. You are entirely within your rights. It's entirely within your control to stop a recording if you're not happy with how it's going. Personally, I'm too polite for that kind of thing, and I will just muddle through it and then hate them with a fiery passion afterwards, because that's the kind of person I was brought up to be nice. But yeah, I think always when you're invited to be on someone's podcast, have a listen to previous episodes, if there are any. There should be, before agreeing. And usually when people approach you, good best practice is when they approach you is to go, hey, I have a podcast about, let's go with the horses analogy again. I've got a podcast about horses. You're a jockey. Would you like to be on my podcast? By the way, here's some interviews I've done with a stable hand and the guy that weighs the jockeys, or whatever. I don't know how horses work. Not a clue. Anyway, the best practice when they approach you would be, here is what we do. We'd like you to be a part of it, with some examples of existing episodes that are out there. If they don't do that, it's not necessarily a red flag. It might just be that they're inexperienced and it hasn't quite clicked yet for them, or they might not be focusing on that part of what they're doing. Either way, it's not a red flag in itself, but it should make you a little bit wary. And if they're not directing your episodes, go and find out why. Go and listen to episodes and see about the kind of stuff they've done. And if, like this guy, that radio clip never aired, I'd be surprised if as a radio journalist he didn't have an online portfolio or something somewhere. Everyone has a LinkedIn nowadays, despite it being the worst of the social media sites, and I'm including TikTok in that. But so yeah, have a Google, have a search on the different sites, see if you can find some other stuff that he's done. If there isn't any, might be, and if there isn't any and he's presenting himself like he's a big shot, then that's a red flag, because he's obviously not. If he comes to you quite honestly like, hey, I'm a radio student, I'm working on my portfolio, I'd love to interview you because I think you'd be great for this, and they're a little bit off, then I'd say give them a little bit more leeway. But yeah, do a little bit of homework is the key to that, I would say, because obviously you don't want to waste your time, and you want to be as well presented as you can be. And sometimes you do get landed with an idiot, and it's often I found myself in those situations, and I just sat there thinking, if I'd just been a dick for about 20 seconds, I could have saved myself this unpleasant hour. But I'm too polite, so I'm not going to do it. You don't have to be like me, I promise. Cool. I'm just checking my notes and all of that kind of thing. Yeah, I think the other thing I wanted to mention, I mentioned earlier about enunciation. Yeah, so when you're, like I said, telephone voice, podcast voice, same kind of thing. You should be making sure that you're sounding out all of your syllables. Make sure that your words are clear and understandable. But, and here's the balancing line again, you're not mumbling, but you're also not acting. There's no need to address the people on the other side of the street. You don't need to talk up here. You can talk like this, and if your microphone's set right, it'll pick it up fine. People tend not to do this because when you're conscious of the microphone being right here, people tend to go the other way, and you tend to get a bit too quiet and a little bit kind of mumbly. So it's just worth bearing in mind that you're enunciating, that you're not overdoing it, but you're also not mumbling. Like everything, it's a balancing act. It's practice. You will get there in the end. It doesn't take that long. You'd be surprised if when you're recording something, do yourself a favor, and whatever is the first thing, the earliest thing you still have that you recorded, put it in a folder and forget about it for a year or 2 years or however long you like. And then when you've been doing it for that long and your skills have developed naturally, go back and listen to the difference between that first one and the ones you're doing now. You will be surprised at how much better you sound and how much you've picked up. It's, like I say, I am fairly stupid, and I I can do this. So there's absolutely no reason why lovely people like yourselves shouldn't be able to. Excuse me. Because yeah, no one's made me stop doing it yet. And surely if I was an idiot, if I was that bad at it, they would have stopped me. Okay, I think we've time for at least one more question. Do we have anything else? Sarah, are there any more in the chat? I can make one up if you like. I already said don't drink and eat into the microphone or near the microphone. Yeah, don't be drunk. Don't have a beer, even if it's just one. You don't drink at work. And you might not be getting paid, but you should be taking this seriously. That doesn't mean you can't have fun with it, but there's a difference between having fun and being drunk at work. It's just common sense, really. And it's respecting your audience again. Like people who don't really care, that comes across, whether it's because they're drinking or because they're not really bothered about editing it properly, or they don't bother to edit out the shitty jokes that they tell each other off microphone and all that kind of thing. All of those things, they just scream a lack of respect for the audience. And that, to me, is the worst thing you can do as a podcaster. Respect your audience's time, respect their intelligence. So you don't need to over-explain things. You don't need to, but also edit out shit that doesn't need to be there. Respect their time, respect their attention by removing anything that doesn't need to be in the episode. And if it means that you put out an episode that's 10 minutes long instead of the half-hour one that you normally do a 10-minute episode. Nobody will complain that you put out a shorter but better episode. No one's going to say, oh, why wasn't it padded? Why couldn't you just stretch it out to half an hour like all the other ones? If it clocks in at 15 minutes, do a fucking 15-minute episode. It's the joy of it. It's not like you've got ad breaks. It's not like there's going to be dead air on someone's headphones because you stopped talking at 15 minutes and they're going to keep listening for another 10. It doesn't work like that. So, I've gone very young. But yeah, respect your audience in all the things. Have respect for your audience and the art form itself, if we're going to get wanky. And why not? Actually, no, let's not call it an art form, because that makes it sound like you get these people, oh, I'm creating art. And art in itself, it feels wrong. It's a craft. It is something that you can get better at by practicing. No one is an expert on their first day. It's okay to suck at this to start with. I certainly did. I even in a fit of I don't know what the word would be. I went back and I did that thing where I went back and listened to some earlier episodes, and I cringed at how bad I sounded. I actually, at one point, I can't believe I'm going to admit this, I re-recorded the first 6 episodes of my podcast 3 or 4 years after I originally released them, and swapped the files on the server so that when anyone downloads them now, it still says, oh, published in 2016 or whenever it was when I started this, but the file they get is from 2019 when I sounded good. You don't need to do that. That's just me being a horrible egotist. But the point is, I actually forgot what my point was. Yeah, you get better at it is over time. You do, it is a process. You'll learn, you'll get better. Okay. Oh, I've got, what's this say? Oh, thanks, Lisa. I'm glad you're enjoying my little chats here. I hope this has been useful, and we should probably round up now. So yes, my take, if there's nothing else that you take away from this, 1, I'm fairly stupid. 2, respect your audience. Make sure that everything you're doing is geared towards them having the best experience of you telling your story. Because you can make a podcast that's just you and your mates talking about shit that you and your mates want to talk about. No fucker else is going to listen to it. No one's going to stop you making a podcast. You can do it for free. You don't need really expensive materials. You can have fun with it. But if you want to make a successful podcast, you need to bring your audience in. You need to respect them and their time and the fact that they're actually going to listen to you, and make them want to come back again. That's, yeah, edit your work. Make yourself sound as good as you can. There are lots of little tips, like distance from the microphone, not standing too far away, a little bit of, you'd be surprised how small an amount of soft materials makes a difference. If you're not sure, stand in the bathroom and record for a couple of minutes, and then go and sit in a cupboard or put your head under a duvet and record for a couple of minutes. The difference is remarkable. Excellent. I think that's an hour. I hope this has been useful. I've really enjoyed it. I love these things. I feel a little bit strange because I'm just talking to myself. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Sarah, for having me. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, you can find me on the socials. Just search for Scott Flashheart, 2 H's, and check out my podcast called Probably True, Stories of Queer Life and Even Queerer Sex. Or if you want to pick up some other little hints and tips, the Queer Podcasters Network will be back and running in the new year with some more workshops and meetups and that kind of thing. Omicron variant willing, obviously, because we're all stuck with this now, aren't we? This way of being. And if nothing else, keep listening to Rise and Shine, because Sarah's amazing and much better at this than me. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope this has been as useful for you as it has been fun for me. Bye. I don't actually know how to end the call. I'm just going to sit and I'll just keep talking. Sarah, whenever you're ready, you can cut me off. Yay. Nah. I think that went well. Do you think that went well? I hope so. I feel like, yeah, I feel like that went well. Quite pleased with that. And thank you everyone who submitted a question. I hope that I gave useful answers. None of this is rocket surgery. Like I say, I'm quite stupid. Yeah. I don't know what to do now. I haven't got a quit. There's no leave button. I don't know how to. Maybe I should go 2 for 1 and just start an OnlyFans next. No, that's a stupid idea. Shut up, Scott. It still says live. I thought it was still live.